Pressure continues to be normal.
RTLS chamber pressure looks good.
Toggling up. Roger, roll with Atlantic.
Water towers, fly!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight outside SC off. Bring in SC off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, folks. You know the drill. You should have just heard for the first time this year the NSF intro music. And I need to get some 5x5s in chat. John Galloway for NASASpaceflight here. Ready for the first launch out of the Cape this year. SpaceX ringing in 2023 with a veritable clown car of payloads here today. 114 payloads on the Transporter-6 rideshare mission. And we will be bringing you live coverage from the Cape. I see tons of 5x5s in chat over there. That means y'all should hear me just fine. So let's go ahead and get this party started with our first launch stream of the year. With me on commentary today, we have Mr. Adrian Bile. Adrian, how are you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to kick off this year with, another Falcon 9, you could say. So as you described it so perfectly, a clown car of a rocket. So yeah, looking forward. I hope you're doing great as well.
Excellent. Adrian, you've heard his name and I guess voice on the stream lots of times before. He writes for us, but he does a ton of different things, and he's going to be handling some live Q&A today as we do on our NASA Spaceflight streams. So make sure you're tagging us in chat at NASA Spaceflight if you've got questions about the mission or what's going on here in 2023. Also, out in the field today, we have Mr. Thomas Berghardt. Thomas, we got you on comms?
You sure do. Good morning from the Kennedy Space Center press site, where you're looking live at Space Launch Complex 40 for this morning's launch, the first orbital launch worldwide in 2023, 114 payloads on the 6th dedicated rideshare mission by SpaceX.
Excellent. So Thomas is out there running the camera we're looking at right now. You're actually at the KSC press site, right, Thomas?
That's correct. I'm over at the Kennedy Space Center looking over at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, and the view is crystal clear. It's a gorgeous morning to go to space.
All right, excellent. Hey, also, we've got a couple other folks out in the field. I don't think we have them on comms yet, but from a different angle, since today's launch is actually an RTLS, rockets coming back to LC-1 here at the Cape, we have Chris Gebhardt, who has moved to sort of a southern position and will be running another camera down that way. Don't quite have that one online here yet for you. And then he is joined by Mr. Sawyer Rosenstein. They're both down there sort of on the beach at Coco, looking up north to the rocket, and this RTLS is going to go off past them and then turn back around and come right back down to the Cape. There's Sawyer's name. I can click on it if I scroll down to the S's. But they are out there in the field as well. But let's go ahead and get going here. I don't think I've missed anything. We got some auto track goodness happening as well. Mr. Michael Baylor will be using the AI computer vision Skynet auto track, whatever it is these days, that he is using. He's here with us as well, but us not on comms. So without further ado, Adrian, can you give us a little bit of a rundown on why exactly you would put 114 payloads on a single rocket?
Yeah, for sure can. So, as you said, there's a lot of payloads here. And that makes sense because one of them would, not really fill this rocket. So what SpaceX does with these transporter missions is basically they offer a rideshare. They offer you to book one part of this launch, and a lot of providers can then share all of these slots at the launch and together finance a Falcon 9. So in this case, there's many providers here. There are some companies that then buy slots and then basically lease them out to others as well. So you have a lot of combination here, how payloads are here. There's also different kinds of payloads here. We not only have classic observation satellites, we also have tech demonstrators. We have educational satellites. We have some satellites from Sony even where they want to make some images available for education. There's loads of different things here that would not really fill a Falcon 9, but together they do, and they make quite a big chunk of payloads.
All right, it's almost like riding the bus into space, right? If if you got a big enough payload or you got enough money, I guess sometimes you can get your own custom Ferrari and go exactly where you want, and you're the only person on it. But sometimes it's a little more efficient to ride the bus. And so, clown car, bus. It's not really public transport, I guess, because it's not like you get on the rocket and put a quarter into the slot for your payload. But we're getting there. When you can launch so many payloads on a single mission, that is a good way to get lots of different experiments, and payloads, and vehicles, and satellites, whatever you want to call it, into space. Now, I think we made a little bit of a differentiation earlier. Even though it's 114 payloads, it's not like popcorn coming off the top of the rocket 114 times. Like, there are some payloads that sort of ride together on a tug or something, right, Adrian?
That's correct. There's, according to the SpaceX timeline they have provided on their website, they have 82 deployment events. And some of these are tugs that then bring payloads to different orbits from there, or that deploy at a later time. So it's not that there's 114 payloads directly attached to the SpaceX stack, but overall there will be 114 payloads launching from this. So that's the distinction.
And that
we
also,
made there.
yeah, and it also includes actually a couple payloads that will actually never separate. There are hosted payloads on some of those tugs that you mentioned, that the tug separates from Falcon 9 and maybe releases some other payloads, but there are things that just stay attached to the tug and can complete their mission from there. So there won't even be 114 objects in orbit after this, because some of those are actually still attached to one another at the end of the day.
Excellent. Let's see if we can't get into some Q&A here. Adrian, do we have a couple questions queued up?
Let me have a look what we have.
We'll work on queuing
Okay.
some questions up here while I say thanks to a couple super chats. Adrian, get a couple questions and I'll get some super chats.
Yep.
Let's see here. Ron's digging the Midwest. All right, that was a new member who was hanging out in the stream a little bit a while ago, became a Red Team member, part of the membership program there. We've also got Blindboy64 says NSF intro sound file for members. I want to make this my alarm clock sound. We actually license that music for use on the broadcast. We have a link to it. There's a command that a mod can run in chat and get you a link to it, but I don't think we could resell it or like re-provide it to you as a member's perk, because that's something we license for the broadcast. But it's available online. There is a link in chat, I think, that would get you over to that sound bite. I guess without all of our pieces. We'll have to look into whether or not we could provide that with our extra, the sounds, yikes, you bet, concur, and that sort of stuff in it. Telstar86 with some curly L saying, Happy New Year, NASA Spaceflight. How many launches do we all think SpaceX will manage this year, including Starship? Funny you should ask. SpaceX is targeting 100 launches, like a launch every 2 launches a week. Aren't they targeting like 100 launches, Adrian?
Yeah, that's what was tweeted before. Of course, I would make like some sort of, that would be a very that's a big number. Let's say that like that. And of course, especially with second stages that they need for these Falcon 9s, you need a high cadence of second stages. You need a high cadence of production, of booster refurbishment. There's a lot of things that need to go very right for them to hit such a cadence. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see yet another year of Falcon 9 breaking records and flying a lot of times this year, which is, I think, expected.
Makes sense. I'm clicking through here. It's going to be curious. Like, we know that SpaceX sometimes has aspirational targets, right? And they put up things that are maybe sound a little unreasonable, but then even if they end up hitting 75% of that or something, it's still an awful lot of launches. I mean, 75 instead of 100 would be a significant number of launches. Let's see here.
Yeah, I mean, they set their own record this past year in 2022 with 61 launches of their own. That already shattered the record for most launches by a single rocket in a given calendar year. So they're only competing with themselves at this point for those records.
Gotcha. Gonna keep running some super chats here. Tom V actually gifting some memberships. That's one of the things you can do if you're a member already and you click the member button, the subscribe button or whatever. You can actually gift memberships to other people. And Tom V has gifted 5 Red Team memberships to other folks that are watching the stream. So good way to share the love and a good reason to watch. Even if you're not a member, if you're watching, you could potentially get a free gifted membership for a month if somebody else in chat graces you, waves their magic gifting membership wand, and sprinkles, I guess, some memberships across the chat. Whichever way you want to visualize that happening. Vigilante6700 says, thanks for becoming a Capcom member. Didn't actually say that, but became a Capcom member, so we say thank you. Jerwa gifted 20 Red Team memberships. Look at this. Taking advantage of the gifting program to ring in the new year. Jerwa, thank you so much for the generosity there and sharing some of the member perks with other people watching the stream. That is awesome. Maja, either way, with the euros in there. No message, just tossing some euros into the kitty. And look at this. Jerwa, after gifting 20 memberships, Jerwa also does a super chat for $114. So you get a satellite, everybody gets a satellite.
Oh,
It's the
there you
Oprah.
go.
Hey, it's better than a rocket being filled with bees, I'll tell you that much. Jerwa, thank you so
What?
much for the. It's the other Oprah meme where it's like bees,
Oh,
and then
right.
bees come out of the thing instead of whatever she's giving away. Jerwa, thank you so much. That is insanely generous. Kicking off the new year with a bang, a really strong start to the support there. $114, $1 for every payload on board this Transporter-6 mission. Thank you so much, Jerwa. You're awesome. I'd rather be flying an X-Wing is the next super chat message here. Saying, right at SES-1, there's a bungee cord looking object that separates from the engine bell. Was ist das? Thomas, you're not the German, but I bet you can answer that one.
I sure can. Yeah, that is it's a stiffener ring. It is. Oh, all right. It's a ring on the end of the engine bell of the Merlin vacuum engine. So the biggest difference between the sea level and vacuum versions of the engine is just how big the bell on the end of it is. And because the vacuum bell is so much larger, because you are basically expanding the rocket exhaust out to zero pressure or very close to zero pressure rather than sea level pressure, it's just a ring to help keep that bell stiff during the initial parts of the descent. Because remember, obviously, that engine's like in the middle of the rocket during the first 2.5 minutes of flight, so it needs to have some extra structural strength to it. But once that engine lights, the ring kind of naturally breaks into a couple pieces and falls apart. It comes down suborbitally. At that point, that little piece of metal will probably just disintegrate on its way back down. That's a completely nominal part of every Falcon 9 launch, actually.
So a lot of times people are like, oh my gosh, what is it? It's a UFO. I saw an object exiting at 6 minutes and 23 seconds or whatever.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
those sorts of things. No, that is a known thing. We know why it's there. It is a stiffener ring that goes around the engine to provide it structural stability and support while it's actually launching.
I feel like that has a second place in confusing things on the SpaceX broadcast next to the ice falling from the second stage, which
the ice
also
that
always
comes
is
off of the thrusters and stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
always also UFOs.
Or UFOs. Nice.
Yeah, one of these.
Also, I would like to point out really quick, we are starting to see the signs of fueling on the Falcon 9. You can see some vapors forming near the bottom of the vehicle. They started fueling right on time at T-minus 35 minutes. And so they're beginning to load the first stage with both RP-1 kerosene and liquid oxygen, whereas the upper stage is only being fueled with RP-1 kerosene at this time. Once they finish kerosene, we'll get that classic 20-minute vent, and then they'll move into liquid oxygen loading. But propellant loading is ongoing on schedule.
All right. Again, folks, we are hanging out here. Coming up on T-minus 20 minutes, like Thomas was saying, we'll be looking for that vent. But we've got a launch, the first one out of the Cape. The first launch for SpaceX this year, Transporter-6 on a Falcon 9, leaving out
this
of...
is the first launch worldwide, DOS. First
Is it
orbital launch around the world this year.
Man, see, I was going to say that, but I'm like, I can't keep track of what's going on in China and stuff like that. So luckily we have y'all here. The first launch worldwide this year, and it is coming up in about 20 minutes from, this camera's at Cape Canaveral, but the rocket's actually at the Space Force Station, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, you slice it, hopefully we get a launch. It's a beautiful day out there to see a rocket go to space, and an RTLS as well. This isn't just a launch where we see it go up, but we'll see that rocket come back down as well, is the plan at least. Adrian, how are we looking on questions that were coming up there?
Oh, we have plenty at this point.
All right, let's grab a couple of those.
Yeah. The first question I want to ask is from Christine Athwas. What's the flight path for the launch today? And I guess we could combine that with the orbit here, because this is a sun-synchronous mission. So the transporter mission, if I recall correctly so far, have both offered normal LEO payload LEO launches and also sun-synchronous. In this case, that means that they launching to a specific kind of orbit that will make sure that the light conditions over certain areas remain consistent over missions, which is, for example, very helpful for imagery satellites. So that's the mission for today and the goal for today, which also is the reason why there are loads of imagery satellites on this. There's quite a chunk.
All right, let's keep getting some more questions here while we have time. And as soon as that, probably about a minute and a half before the T-minus 20-minute event gets really obvious here. But let's grab another question before then.
Yes, there's a question of booster recovery here, which we haven't hit so far, and I think it's also a big point for today's mission. So before I answer this question, I will jump into this question. I will give a quick overview about the booster here, because this booster is actually flying for the 15th time today. Side note, which will tie the record for the most flown booster together with B1058. This is B1060. So they will then fly 15 times, have flown 15 times so far, and the booster is planning to land on LZ1. So it is a return to launch site mission. So yeah, quite a good start to the year. And the question by Joe Kangas is, do you think that a booster could hit 20 launches from here on out? And I will just start with my prediction. I'm gonna say yes, because I mean, so far they're demonstrating a good capability to get these boosters up to 14, 15, 13. Like, we see boosters hitting these, and while I think we see that the refurbishment time goes up a bit and they have to do a bit more inspections, I don't see a reason why they would stop now, and why they would not get to 20, for example. What do you guys think?
I mean, they're already a long way towards 20. We've gotten boosters that have 15 missions, right? And I don't see, like, we haven't heard anything like, oh, geez, this one looking a little worse for wear. Like, they get soot on the side and stuff like that. But SpaceX is able to, I don't even think refurbished is the right terminology for it, right? SpaceX is launching these things over and over, and we haven't seen something like, wow, can't use that one anymore. It's cracked down the middle or something, right?
Yeah, as far as we can tell, they haven't found any sort of like real limit to reuse on Falcon 9s yet. I would speculate, and maybe I'll look like a clown by the end of the year, but I bet they do reach 20 flights on a booster by the end of this year. And speaking of the number 20,
Speaking of 20,
there is our T-minus 20-minute vent. Perfect. So there's a nominal vent from the transporter erector next to Falcon 9. That is the indication that RP1 loading onto the upper stage of Falcon 9 is now complete, and they're purging the lines now in preparation to begin liquid oxygen loading onto the upper stage. So propellant loading going as planned.
all right. That is, again, a normal thing. That means that things are ticking along as anticipated, y'all. That big T-minus 20-minute vent is one of the things that we look for as an indication that they are marching towards that expected T0 coming up in about 19 minutes right now. Again, if you're hanging out with us, this is a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, and it is launching the Transporter-6 mission. We are looking at 114 different payloads aboard the rocket here. It's not just like, one big satellite or anything like that. It's a rideshare mission where lots of different companies and organizations sort of come together to finance a launch with their smaller payloads so that they have a ride into space. And that's exactly what SpaceX is doing here with Transporter-6.
There was actually some. Sorry, I questioned it very much works with this segue, because we have questions about how SpaceX or how people book these, and how companies book these, and how SpaceX actually determines the price. And it's quite fascinating, because usually what you see on most rocket launches is like one provider announces, okay, we will launch this, and it's just, it's kind of behind the scenes. With this, they have a website where you can kind of, like, you search for a train ticket, you put in your desired orbit on the SpaceX website, and then when you want to launch and your payload mass, and they give you an estimate price, what you would probably pay for this mission. So it's a kind of it's a kind of funny way to, because it's more similar to how you would book a train ticket than what happens on other rocket launches. So to answer these questions we're getting about that, it's by the website. You can click on the SpaceX website and just search for what would a mass cost on a rideshare mission.
Do they have like, checked baggage limitations? Like, do you get one personal item and one carry-on or something like that?
Yeah, no liquids, and like which would make some of these payloads today a bit hard because they carry liquid.
Right.
Oh, jeez.
So another question here about the recovery today is by Gina G, which is there any physical difference made to a booster doing a sea landing or doing an RTLS? And Thomas, I believe the answer is no, right?
Sorry, hold on. I missed the first part of the question.
Is there any physical difference
booster.
between?
Yeah, physical difference. No, there is not. So the difference is how you expend your propellant during the flight. So during the ascent, basically you are burning until you have some set amount of propellant left that you need for recovery. And that amount that you need changes based on the recovery method. So if you're doing just a ballistic downrange landing on a drone ship, that is like the least amount of propellant that you need. You just need enough for an entry burn and landing burn. However, if you're doing a partial boost back burn for a drone ship landing closer to shore, or if you're doing an RTLS mission like they are today, you need to preserve more propellant for that boost back burn. And then you still have the entry and landing burn. So there's nothing physically different about the rocket. You just shut down, the engine shutdown timings are different, and you add the boost back burn to come back towards landing zone 1. And we were mentioning the flight path earlier. Because this mission is flying south towards that sun synchronous orbit that you mentioned, it's actually going to spend the first few seconds, maybe 30, 40 seconds or so, flying toward the landing zone from Space Launch Complex 40, because the landing zone is south of here, which is why a lot of these polar corridor missions actually lend themselves very nicely to a return to launch site profile, because it's almost like you're landing on a drone ship that's only slightly downrange. Rather than if you're flying northeast from the Cape Canaveral and you want to try an RTLS, you start the mission by flying away from the landing zone right away. So these missions benefit a little bit from the positioning of the landing pad, so they don't have to save as much propellant for that boost back burn.
Which is also a kind of funny thing about this mission, because we have a situation where they're launching 114 payloads and still have easily the margins to just return to launch site. Which is cool, I guess. So there's another question here about upcoming launches here on the Cape, because there's a certain other rocket that might be coming up. The question is, when Falcon Heavy?
Ooh, that is a great question. So, and it's funny because we're talking about RTLS missions as well. So there are 3 missions currently on the docket for the first 2 weeks of January for SpaceX. This is the first one. The second one is a mission for OneWeb, the second batch of OneWeb satellites that's launching on Falcon 9 no earlier than this coming Sunday. And then after that, no earlier than the 12th, is the next Falcon Heavy mission. And all 3 of those missions will include some form of return to launch site landing. So OneWeb, just like the previous OneWeb flight, expecting a return to landing zone 1. And then the Falcon Heavy mission, just like the USSF mission that launched last year, will have the 2 side boosters returning to landing zones 1 and 2, and an expendable center core. And so that mission, the Falcon Heavy mission, is no earlier than the 12th, and all 3 of those first SpaceX missions this year are returning to the launch site for landings at the landing zones.
Quite even with the past months, we had quite a streak of RTLS. It feels like after a long time of basically none, and then suddenly it's RTLS everywhere.
Yeah, it seems like we had a huge drought. Like we didn't get to see any of them, and then it's like bang, 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 over and over again.
Yeah, which is cool. I like RTLS. I like rockets that land closer to our cameras. That's, might be. Also, the question here about the cadence and how they want to hit it. Are SpaceX exploring stage 2 recovery for the ultimate reuse offer? Not with this rocket.
Right, not with this rocket, but yes, because they have another rocket.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a time when SpaceX and especially Elon Musk on Twitter communicated and talked a bit about Falcon 9 recovery of second stage possibilities, but that was dropped very a long time ago. There's this rocket called Starship, and that's the one where they want to achieve full recovery of the rocket, which would include the second stage. And with that, you suddenly don't have the problem anymore of needing to manufacture 50 second stages if you want to launch 50 times a year. So yes, they are pursuing that, just not with Falcon 9. Falcon 9 will stay as a first stage recovery rocket, and the second stage will always be expended.
Gotcha. Hey, real quick, we've got a feed coming in out from Chris's camera. You can see the Coast Guard is in action out there, possibly patrolling the clearance zones. Today's an interesting set of clear zones because this trajectory is going down to the south. So the rocket will be continuing its way all the way down the Florida coast, as we can see on Flight Club here. If you don't know what Flight Club is, it's a trajectory visualization and planning tool that is available online. Our friend Declan makes it. It's a website. You go to flightclub.io. But if you're interested in exactly how these rockets are going to fly their trajectories, it's an interactive sort of 3D map. So I pulled up Transporter-6 here, and you can see the two bits that are interesting. If we look from the top, you get that dogleg maneuver sort of sitting between the islands there. I guess, not that island. It goes right over Cuba. But turning to the south and going right down the Florida coast, if you're down the southern part of Florida, all the way down to Miami, you may see this going by. And if we look at it from the side here, we're going to get that RTLS today. So the rocket separating from the second stage and the booster actually traveling on its way back down to the launch site. But the clearance zone that we can see the Coast Guard ship was going out to, there is the safety zone sort of drawn on the map where we get the boats and such out of the way. But again, interesting trajectory, that RTLS, we should see that rocket coming back, and that dog leg maneuver, which has taken some of the business from Vandenberg. I don't think Jack's on comm, so he's not going to yell at me. But previously, these polar type trajectories are available or mostly launched out of Vandenberg, and with this new, opening or use of the southern dogleg corridor out of the Cape, it means that missions that used to primarily launch out of the west coast in Vandenberg now are able to launch out of Cape Canaveral, much to Jack's disappointment since the launches don't go out of there. But again, this is flightclub.io. Definitely check it out on the web if you want to look at the trajectories your own. You can load different missions and stuff like that. He's got a Patreon as well if you want to support what he's doing. But massive thanks to our buddy Declan for putting this together. Let's see here. Where are we at? T-minus 10 minutes. If we're at T-minus 10 minutes, I think we need to start our own tradition. It's time for the T-minus 10 minute merch plug. If you want to support what we do, all you have to do is just show up and hang out with us on the stream, answer some or ask some questions or whatever. But maybe you don't know what day it is. Maybe you need to keep a track of when launches are going to happen. You want to have a nice calendar to put it on. We've got our two different calendars still available. It's not too late. If you want to hop over to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, you can grab one of our Starbase calendars or our spaceflight calendar, one very specific to Starbase and Starship and things that are going on, and the other generic, not generic, like all sorts of different space-related imagery there as well. We also have some specific metal prints. I don't know who names these things, but this one is named Who Let the Legs Out. I am not going to woof. But the metal prints are fantastic. If you need to decorate your wall or something, this one is actually taken by Pauline Ackelin, and it shows a composite image of different stages of the landing legs deploying during a RTLS. We have another one that Pauline took out at the West Coast port. Clearly, this is not how they unload boosters. This is tilted. The camera was actually tilted, but that crane out at the West Coast port when they were loading, or I guess unloading a booster from a drone ship out there, that is another metal print that is available on the shop. So lots of different ways to support what we do. Go to shop.nasaspaceflight.com, click around, order something for your art. Maybe $65 is a little rich. There's coffee mugs, there's t-shirts, there's all sorts of different ways that you can support what we do. But thank you so much across the board if you click over that way and do a bit of merch. I think, oh man, I don't know. Michael will have to correct me in the back channel, but I think that now for 2023, we have a new thing. If you purchase something from the merch store, it may actually pop up on the stream. I'm not sure if we have that turned on for this or not yet. Maybe y'all can help me test it out. But there may be a little notification that says thank you on the stream itself if you purchase something from the merch store during a stream. Michael can tell me if I've mixed up whether or not that's live right now. Hey! There we go. Something popped up, a new order in NASASF Starbase calendar for 2023. If you do that, we're not putting your name or anything there right now. We're talking about how we can actually give folks a shout out if they'd want one for supporting us via merch plug or merch stores, merch store purchases, I guess is the right way to say it. But right now, it's just going to show that product up there in the upper right-hand corner as soon as you buy it. But nothing about you. It doesn't like say being shipped to 123 Main Street. Like that's not something we would put up there. Anyways. That's a good 2-minute talking about merch and the new feature that Michael programmed for the store this year. How are we looking at T-minus 7 minutes here, Adrian?
We are looking good. Next up, at 7 minutes, which just happened, the Falcon 9 will begin engine chilling prior to launch, which means they will precondition their 9 Merlin engines for flight. So that's, yeah, we are getting there. And the next bigger milestone that they are outlining on their timeline is the 1 minute mark, where the flight computer of Falcon 9 actually will take over the countdown and start the pre-launch checks and pressurize everything to flight pressure and get ready for launch. So yeah, we are in the business end of this countdown, you could say.
Nice. Thomas, how you looking out there at the Cape?
Oh, it's great. The rocket is going to fly towards the sun from this perspective, so we'll see how that goes. But the sky is crystal clear, just a slight breeze. It's a beautiful morning, and should be a great morning to see this launch. Looks great. There's some Space Force security up in the air as well, so it's cool.
Like Space Force security, right?
Yeah, it's not the stereotypical KSC security where there's a gator around me. There's an actual helicopter flying around.
I mean, this is a sun-synchronous launch, so of course there's no clouds, right?
I'm not sure that's how that works.
I don't know if that's how that works. I would not want to see a gator flying in a helicopter. That would be a...
Oh, God, no.
So coming up on T-minus 5 minutes here, let me say thank you to a couple more people, a lot of super chaps, and the gifted memberships. So many of you showing the thanks and spreading the love with the gifted memberships. Tony Parkinson gifting 5 Red Team memberships. We appreciate you there, Tony. And if you got one of those gifted memberships from Tony or any of the other people that have been gifting memberships, you may see a little alert and you can say thank you in chat with it. TN Ballistics has become a flight engineer member, one of the upper levels of our membership program. Thank you so much for the support there, TN Ballistics. Trevor Boyce has upgraded their membership to the Red Team. That's interesting that it's upgraded to the Red Team. Appreciate you there, Trevor. Rough Rider Show did $9.99 a little while ago, saying, Happy New Year, team. Keep on being awesome. Rough Riders, thank you so much. It's a name we read out a lot on the streams, and we appreciate the support. As always, Mike Who became a Red Team membership there as well. We've got Connor Murray from Canada, it looks like. Is RP1 a cytogenic? It says cytogenic. I think they might have mistyped cryogenic there.
Oh.
But Thomas, what's the technical answer on that? Is it cryogenic or can you just cool it?
I don't know. I think they call it subcool. I do not believe you can make RP1 cryogenic. The liquid oxygen is cryogenic.
Right.
But Falcon 9 is subcooled RP1 kerosene is the correct term, because you can also use RP1 just at ambient temperature, and like Atlas 5 does, you don't actually have to cool it even. So
makes sense. It's like liquid oxygen isn't normally liquid at standard temperature pressure, so you have to cryogenically cool it to get it into the liquid state, but RP1 is stable. It just is nice liquid whenever it's normal pressures and temperatures, so maybe that's a differentiating factor there. If y'all keep buying stuff from the merch plug, we're going to have stuff on the screen during the launch here. We got 3.5 minutes, and the order thing has been constantly going off since we mentioned it on the screen. Thank y'all so much for the support there, y'all. The new feature, we have the merch. If you buy merch from the store, it doesn't put your name or address or anything, but it does say what somebody ordered in the upper right-hand corner there. Really quickly, Maja says first launch of 2023 with some more euros. Eric Jensen asking a question about Artemis, the next Artemis 1 launch. I guess it would be Artemis 2 for the next Artemis, right? But that one's scheduled for a couple years, right, Thomas?
Yeah, no earlier than next year.
Yeah, no earlier than next year. There you go. And we've got one more here. I actually kept this one for the last one I will read out before launch. Less than 3 minutes, but Witchburner, actually WHICH, says, in memory of my mom, who, even though she was 80 and had Alzheimer's, she was always excited to see a rocket launch and test. 100 pounds there from Witchburner in memory of their mom. Witchburner, thank you so much for being a part of the community. Thank you so much for sharing it with others, including your mom there, who was always excited to see a rocket launch test. We appreciate your support, and we appreciate you and the ones you love being a part of this community and sharing what we're able to share with you. Thank you so much, Witch. We appreciate you. So that puts us at T-minus 2 minutes here. We've got ready to track some messages in the back channel, making sure that everything's good. The Falcon 9's looking good. Chris is hiding his head from the sun with a towel, it looks like, ready to track in the background. I don't know if T-minus 2 minutes I can get this. I will save that for after the launch. We will show you Chris's tracking methodology after the launch. But I believe the NASA Spaceflight team is all ready to show you what's happening with this RTLS. Transporter-6, 114 payloads heading to space. Uphill on a Falcon 9, SpaceX first launch of the year, first launch out of the United States, first launch out of the entire world, coming up in about a minute. I'm going to bring up that microphone we've got out there, and we will make sure we hear, hopefully no snapping noises from alligators, maybe some wind and people talking. Let's see what we've got from the Cape as we march towards launch.
The rocket is now on internal power.
Okay, good. No sounds of an alligator securitizing someone next to the camera.
Oh, that would be bad.
That would be bad.
There should be a verification of go for launch very soon.
And Adrian, as soon as you get that, feel free to reload those callouts to us.
It's go for launch.
All right.
Rockets go for launch.
T-minus 25 seconds. And here comes our T-minus 10 seconds. And let's see what we get with a Falcon 9 here today.
Hopefully a launch.
We've got ignition, and there is the liftoff. Falcon 9 clearing the tower out at SLC 40. As the rumble starts to fade, we see the Falcon 9 pitching downrange, heading down to the south, carrying those payloads. The plume expansion, though, look at this. Our buddy Dr. WD40 is out today. He is a friend of ours who is an educational streamer, and this is his view. Look at that plume expansion and how the plume interacts on the backside of the rocket.
You can see it overlapping in the middle below there. I
Yeah.
think it looks crazy. I have that's I don't see that often. You always see like main expansion, but that is rare to see.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Everybody still got it. This is the auto tracking camera, Michael's robotic tracking camera right now. Really see that plume expansion there as the air gets thinner and the rocket exhaust spreads out behind
Here
the
comes
rocket.
Miko.
Yep, that's Miko. And we should get separation here.
Yeah, there it is. You can see the thrusters. Oh my god. And that's
You got
the
two
boost back.
things on this. Go ahead, Adrian.
That's the boost back burn. You can see the booster now boosting back to the launch side,
Yep.
while the second stage at the bottom is flying away. So wow, that's cool.
Two things on the screen. The one rocket, the one vehicle has become two vehicles now. That second stage continuing its way south. And Michael's tracking camera here staying with the booster. It looks like, if I saw correctly, I think this is still the booster. We're going to see if we can't track this all the way back because it's a return to launch site, RTLS. It will be coming back to the Cape to land just a few miles away.
Yeah, the boost back burn will shut down any second now. I think that actually has happened. And from there on out, the next burn for this booster will be the entry burn at about 6.5 minutes, where it will bleed off a bit of its speed that it has right now, and also protect itself against the re-entry heat. So yeah, you're slowing down that rocket before it gets too crispy. And after that, the next one then is landing burn.
God, and look at that. You can see the thruster firings up there. Not something we always see. Real quick, here's the SpaceX cameras. You can see on the left-hand side, that is the booster returning back down to the Cape. Those grid fins have deployed. And on the right-hand side, fairing separation. That's the second stage on the right, and you just saw the fairing separate, splitting into two pieces to expose those payloads to space. Harder to separate them if they're inside a fairing, so you get rid of the fairing. Also don't want to carry the mass of the fairing there either. But look at that. Look at this. Look at the weather down there.
Wow. You could also just see how small some of these payloads are in that shot, because some of them are just a few kilograms. So it's crazy how much technology you can get in such a small space.
So we do have a little bit of time. Remember, we're keeping the microphones on because we should get those sonic booms as the first stage returns down to the Cape. They actually put out warnings to residents telling them to expect loud noises, the sonic booms, as the spacecraft is re-entering. Look at that. You can see the Florida coast down there behind the booster on the left-hand side of your screen. Our cameras, Michael's camera, is still tracking that. We can see those thruster firings still happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a proper warning to residents if there's no siren included, though. But
yes, there's no siren.
But yeah, the boost back burn, the entry burn is just about 1 minute and 20 seconds away from now. So it's coming closer now. And you can also see at the SpaceX telemetry, the altitude of the first stage, which is on the left side here, is decreasing now. So the booster is falling down again after reaching its highest point. And yeah, so at some point, the atmosphere will get into its way.
Look at that. You can see the curve of the Cape itself there now. And the thrusters, here we go. We'll go back over to Michael's cameras. You can really see those thrusters going.
So cool to see these. You can see how energetic these are. Like it's really like a bright flash of gas.
Look at that. That Cape is getting bigger in the rearview mirror. I guess it's a camera looking backwards, so not really a rearview mirror. Sort of like a Tesla semi rearview mirror.
It's more like a car. Yeah. The car kind of turns around mid-flight, and like it's just like, okay, now this is forward.
But we should come up on that entry burn shortly. I'm almost positive we're going to see that on the cameras here.
Yeah. It looks very promising. So entry burn should come up, in about 10-ish seconds, maybe a little bit less.
How's that?
There
Look
it
at
is.
Wow.
You could see the 3 engines line. Oh wow, that looked cool.
You can almost see it. It looks like a heat shield. We talk about supersonic retropropulsion and using the engine flames as a heat shield to protect the rest of the bucket, but that looks like a capsule re-entering almost. That's amazing.
And that's it. That's the entry burn. Now you can see how it is still like super crispy and smoking from that. And next up, it will be its landing. There it is.
I mean, I'm curious to keep watching this. Look at that. Michael still got it on the track. I think we're about to get it on some of the other cameras, but look at that. It's a skyscraper falling out of the sky, trailing smoke, targeting something about the slightly larger than what, a football field, soccer field, tennis court? I don't know. What's this, basketball court? I don't know. It's something like that, but let's see here.
The crazy thing is like these sizes of these things, because you would always see them next to big things. And did we just see the landing burn?
Was that the landing bird? I'm not sure. I'm looking for a camera that's got it. There, Fleecam's got it.
There we go. It's coming down.
Who put those silos there?
Can we request to move them?
Here's Dr. WD-40's camera.
And
here we go.
Trees.
Look at this, out at the beach, all the people looking at it.
And I think that's touchdown.
I'll take the fist bump right in the shot. You can see the Falcon 9 sitting on the pad as dust rises from the LZ over there at the Space Force Station. We just got another, here we go, a little bit closer camera from SpaceX here. Another RTLS as the Falcon 9 that pushed the 114 payloads on the Transporter-6 rideshare has touched back down at the Cape. Look at how sooty it is right now. Jeez.
For 15th time here. So congrats on now the joint record for this booster.
All right. And then here we're getting the camera up in space. We've got Seco there at the same time, right?
Yes. And there you can see all of these payloads. They will now enter a coast phase, which will take about 40 minutes, a little bit less than 40 minutes, 37 minutes. And then they will restart the engine, the second stage engine, for one final time for 2 seconds to adjust the orbit. And after that, at 58 minutes after T0, they will start to deploy the satellites in a very quick sequence. It will go from 58 minutes to 1 hour and 31 minutes, where they basically deploy everything in 33 minutes.
Gotcha. So I don't believe we're going to stay around for all of the popcorn popping off the top of the rocket there. Again, 114 payloads. They don't even show it on the SpaceX timeline down there of the deployment of all of those different payloads. But that right there is what we came here to see today. All right. Here we go. Okay, I did say I would do this. Tough out there today tracking with the sun, but I've got a couple things. Here is my favorite shot on launch pad, on launch day, the empty transporter erector slung back there at SLC-40, and Chris Gebhardt with his tracking hood on. He has, this is what he was trying to do. Super hard to see out there when you have the monitor and you're looking, you got this little speck in the sky. You have to do everything you can to, I guess, keep out the sun. And Chris was trying to track the rocket there with a custom-made, is that merch? Tell me that's like a Falcon 9 shirt or something like that he's put on top of himself. But that's Chris Gebhardt down there on the beach to the south of the launch pad, tracking the launch today. Let's see.
It is a merch shirt on top of his camera.
Was that Sawyer? What was it? Somebody's shirt?
Yes, that is a merch shirt that is being used on Chris's camera.
Oh, wait, no, you can see it. You can actually see the NASA Spaceflight logo on the shirt right here. I don't know. Yeah, there it is. You can see the slightly faded logo on the shirt. So I guess use it as a
We will
t-shirt or use it as a camera hood, huh?
Yeah, we will rebrand t-shirt and camera hood equipment.
All right. Let's say thanks to a couple more super chats that came in over the course of this. And maybe if we have one or two more questions, Adrian, we might get. Tommy Vusk says, hey, what's that Four Towers video about really? Does it relate to anything we can see here? That's a timely super chat there, Tommy. You can see the 4 lightning catenary towers there out at Slick 40 to protect the rocket on the pad from lightning strikes. Thank you so much for the support. And we've got another one. Texas Taterbug says, Happy New Year. What are those towers around the launch pad for? Nice. We have an entire video about lightning catenary towers and how they actually protect the rocket and its payloads on the pad from the frequent Florida lightning over most of the year down there. We've got Echo Deal says, where's the earth-shattering kaboom? I was expecting an earth-shattering kaboom. Luckily, no earth-shattering kabooms today. And then Olga Litvinsky says, or is becoming a Pad Rat member. We appreciate the support there, Olga. Thank you so much for the support. Do we have another question or two we can wrap up with?
Yeah, just a quick question about the second stage here. What happens to the second stage? In this case, it will deorbit itself. Once this all is done and they have deployed everything, it will deorbit itself and then crash down in the ocean. So yeah, nothing stays in orbit there. So the one final question I have here is, if the booster needs to light engines to protect it from entry, how do the fairings not burn up on re-entry? And the answer by that is where I also asked Alex for is they have a larger area to mass ratio, which correlates with the amount of heating you get on the way down. And I also would imagine that they are maybe a bit less sensitive to everything they expose there than the engine section and the whole like business end of the booster. So that would also tie into that.
Also, remember that the fairings, part of their purpose is protecting from heating on the way up. So the material that the fairings are made from and the coating on the fairing is also heat resistant. So in addition to high area ratio, you also have materials that are built to withstand reentry.
There we go. And that clears
right.
our questions.
Excellent. So we got a lot of questions answered there. We read all the super chats and everything. Also, we had those merch plugs popping up on the screen. I'll go ahead and re-enable that now. We do turn the merch integration, I guess, off whenever the rocket is launching, so we don't have merch plugs on the stream while the rocket is taken off from the pad. But I've gone ahead and re-enabled those. And really quickly, it looks like we got another picture coming in from the field. Sawyer and Chris out there on the beach. Here's the crew down from the south side with the cameras. Chris operating the live stream camera, and Sawyer, I think, taking some stills out there today. Be on the lookout on Twitter for those to be released here in just a little bit. But massive thanks to Sawyer Rosenstein and Chris Gebhardt for rolling out to the beach today to help bring us one of the views of our mission. Also, hey, out there at the Cape, we had Mr. Thomas Berghardt providing this camera and the fantastic job tracking the launch there today. Thomas, thank you so much for being a part of the stream.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Das and Adrian, for handling it back in the studio. It was a gorgeous launch. Looking forward to the next one on Sunday.
Excellent. Let's see here. We also had Mr. Adrian Beil. Adrian, thank you so much for holding it down with me today.
It was as always, it was so much fun. I'm looking forward to many more this year.
All right. Hey, we also had another camera feed from our friend Dr. WD40. He's actually an educational streamer, an outdoor educational streamer. You can find him over at his website, Dr. WD40, like it's on the screen there, .com, or at Dr. WD40 on Twitch, or on Twitch and on Twitter. He does all sorts of awesome outdoor IRL content. He does metal detecting on the beach. He does some launch footage. He's got a P1000 with this insane zoom that he tracks some of the launches and landings with. And does bird watching as well. So massive thanks for Dr. WD40 for providing us one of his feeds out here today so we could share that with y'all on our NASA Spaceflight broadcast. Check him out over on Twitch or his own website if you're interested in that sort of thing. And lastly, we had Michael back here as well. Michael will give us a report on how the auto track did, but a lot of the shots we were seeing there were coming from that auto track camera, especially the thruster firings like when the thrusters were sort of puffing out there, a lot of that was coming off the auto track camera mounted at our site over there permanently at Cape Canaveral as part of our Space Coast Live camera constellation. And lastly, my name is John Galloway here for NASA Spaceflight. Thank you all so much for sharing this with us today. It's what we do here. First launch of the year at NASA Spaceflight, sharing what's going on with our own particular brand of humor and commentary and answering your questions and all the things we do. If you like our sorts of coverage, if you like seeing our feeds and you like seeing what's going on and spending this time with us, make sure you toss a follow to the channel. You know how to do it. It's a little button up there. If you're watching over on Twitch, hey, thank you all as well for being a part of the community and supporting what I do. But for now, we're going to go ahead and shut down this launch coverage. And we will see you nerds later. We're going to go ahead and roll the outro music just because it's the new year and we need to kick it off with a bang. Here we go.
Liftoff. Propulsion continues to be normal.
The chamber pressure looks good. Doubling up. Roger roll with Planet.
Water towers, fly! Yes!
Echo Delta nominal.
Flight outside SE off. Say again, SE off.
Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
Stand by.